Welcome to the Voice of Mount Pleasant podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
Hello, this is Roger Gaither, your host for the Voice of Mount Pleasant podcast. Today, we have a two-part interview. In part one, the publisher of Mount Pleasant magazine, Bill Macchio, chats with Theresa Stratford, managing editor of the special pandemic edition of Mount Pleasant magazine. Then, in part two, Bill talks to Dana Coleman, the art director for Mount Pleasant magazine. Now, here's Bill and Theresa.
Hey, Theresa, thanks for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So before we go into the magazine and what we're doing, tell us about what you're doing, how the kids are doing, and a little bit about your life.
Yeah, so right now I have a second grader, a kindergartner, and then a 3-year-old. So in a sense, it's not that bad because, they are little enough to not really kind of like know what's going on. I mean, of course they know their school's canceled and they're not going to school or seeing their friends, but and their activities were canceled. But for the most part, I can kind of keep them busy just with doing some things in the yard. And, so I feel like it's not terrible for them. I mean, they're actually doing better than I think people thought that kids would be doing,
Our children are more resilient than we think they are.
I think so too. I was really concerned about the homeschooling at first, but it's gone okay. I mean, we have assignments that we have to do every day, so we do them. At first, I was a little bit pressuring myself to try to get them done quickly, and now it's like if we miss one of the things on the list, I just try to pick it up the next day or something.
So let me ask you this, because when I approach you about helping me document this, the content, I want to know exactly what went through your mind when I asked you to help me document
I wanted to do it so badly because I think it's very important to people that they see that there's somebody out there that's still trying to tell their stories. People want to get their stories out, and then other people want to read about those stories. So I know for me, I've been reading a lot more articles and things like that than I was before, because I don't know. It's just important to stay informed right now of what's going on.
So what do you think about the content that we've generated documenting this pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's good because we've tried to stick with a lot of local stories, but then we also did do some national stories so you can know what's going on around, further away where you probably have relatives, living. So, but it is nice to see that really, so many of us are all just kind of doing the same thing. That's the bottom line. So it's been kind of cool to see that.
The whole world is on the same page. The whole world is experiencing the same thing you and I are experiencing.
Exactly. And that's nice to see. I don't know. I've really liked the neighborhood story was really good. That was kind of a cool story.
What did you think about the article of the people that had actually gotten the disease, the virus? What did you think of that?
That was really good too, and also a little bit uplifting because you realize that they are okay now, and so they told their stories, and one of the guy, he had a son with that had a health condition, so that was really scary for them. He's living there with his son that has a health condition, so it's just it was good. I liked reading those stories, and then the woman that we interviewed, Roxanne. She's just kind of like an average person with a daughter and everything like that. And she contracted it. And it was like, oh, okay, this really can just happen to anybody, So, it was good. It's good to see those stories.
Roxanne's video online on Facebook went viral really quickly. So I'm glad she agreed to do the editorial with us,
Me too.
I think the piece that the gentleman that's married to the nurse.
Yes.
When I read that, I had to stop and wipe my eyes.
Me too. So did I.
It was a very good article.
So did I, and it also it renews your energy though that we need to be doing stuff for people that are in the healthcare industry right now. Just kind of getting the word out about what they're dealing with and how it's stressful for them, but they're still doing it, and it's what they love to do. And
yes.
So they are doing this, and but it's like we just need to remember that we got to try to, I think as a publication, we got to try to get their word out and just try to help them in any way we can. I mean, it's hard as a publication. It's like, what can you do? But getting their messages out to the public is what we can do.
As I've said in this journey together with you and the team, that when people pick up the latest issue and they read the articles that we assembled and the testimonials from these people who have been through this, the people that pick up the magazine, there'll be a certain joy that they'll get from it.
Yeah.
Not because of the issue we put together, not because of the content necessarily, but Mount Pleasant Magazine is a part of their lives. And I think they'll receive comfort in that, because we are the voice of Mount Pleasant, whether it's this podcast or whether it's the magazine. Mount Pleasant Magazine is a voice. So I appreciate what you've done. Now, I got another question for you, though. How do you like working with the publisher?
Just terrible. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's been good. It's been fine. I mean, of course, I know you're excited about it, and I'm glad you're excited about it. I wouldn't want you to be bored with it or something like that. So, it's been good. I mean, I've liked doing it. It's been nice for me to have sort of something else to think about too, other than. Well,
I want the listeners to know. Well, sure, because you're taking care of your family, but I did want the listeners to know that you also are the managing editor of HealthLinks, and I got to tell you, your efforts for that. I know the publisher of HealthLinks, Colin, is excited as I am about it, because all these magazines we're putting out, people will keep them around, because when I did the Hugo magazine, that was 31 years ago, Theresa.
Yeah, I know.
Still keep it around. I mean, they refer back to it all the time. So this is a totally different thing, but it's still documenting what we're all going through. The biggest difference with this, Theresa, is the whole world is experiencing what we're experiencing, and there's a certain positivity to that, because our world leaders are talking to one another now. What was your favorite in documenting this in our COVID-19 edition? What article did you like the best?
That's really hard. I mean, I liked the story about the police chief. That was a good one. I liked Colin's story about the world, how it came together. I really liked that one too. Colin McCandless. Denise did a great job too with her stories. Yeah, the seniors graduating. I like that one. Yeah, that was great. Mm-hmm.
This has affected so many people. We could, as much great content as we have in this issue, there's no way we could cover it all. You know what I mean? It's just.
Really not. But we can always try to do it. Maybe there's going to be so many things that this is going to be around, obviously, for a long time. Not just the fact that maybe it will be around the virus catching it, but just the effects from it will be around for a very long time. So I think it's good that we'll have stories and content that we can do further on, for a year or 2 years. I mean, who knows?
Well, the next issue of Mount Pleasant Magazine will have a lot of editorial in there about the coming out of it, so to speak. Because by the time the July happens, we'll have come through this, hopefully. How do you think this has made Mount Pleasant stronger?
Well, I think it's making people realize that, what they had before, maybe they took it for granted, So, I do think everyone's feeling that way. Even just little dumb things like going to the store quickly to get, chips. You can't really do that now. There's a 15-minute line out the door.
Right.
Just little things like that where you're just thinking, gosh, why was I ever complaining?
Right. That's a great way to put that. That's a great way to put that.
How bringing people together? I think it's going to bring people together, because I just think once things start to slowly get back to normal, people are not. They're just going to take less things for granted. You're not going to complain about maybe something dumb like, traffic. You might not complain as much about that, because in a sense you might be happy to see traffic. Really, finally, people are able to get out, go to work, or things like that, so yeah, I do think there's going to be a definite difference. And also too, just how you treat people that work in grocery stores and things. those people, I don't know how they've done it. I mean, that's,
they are part of the heroes of this for sure.
For sure. Yeah. So, I think it'll bring people together because people will realize that what you had before, don't take it for granted,
Right.
So.
Right. Let me ask you a serious question. Okay.
Yeah.
How many people do you think are sticking their tongues out behind the masks? Listen, I appreciate you joining us here on the Voice of Mount Pleasant podcast. And I very, very much enjoyed working with you on documenting this pandemic and what we're all going through. It means a lot to me that you put the effort you put into it. And I think it'll mean a lot more to our readers. By the way, they can go to Coronavirus Mag. That's coronavirusmag.com, and they can read it digitally if they have a chance to pick it up. But again, Theresa, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Okay. See you later.
Thank you.
In part 2 of our Voice of Mount Pleasant podcast, Bill chats with Dana Coleman.
Hey, Dana, I appreciate you helping with the COVID issue. It's going to be great. Tell me, how's your family doing? And tell me what you're going through a little bit.
Yeah, the family's doing okay. I've got kind of a unique situation here in that, we're watching after my mom. She's in her mid-70s. And also, so we got to be real careful around her. And also my wife has lupus. So she's got a pre-existing that's pretty harmful for her body. So I got to be extremely careful when I leave the house and go around anyone to make sure I don't bring anything back.
Yeah. Do they worry when you leave the house, Dana?
Yeah. Of course, my mom is pretty worried. She doesn't go out the house much at all. My wife hadn't left the front porch in over 2 months
Wow.
because she's definitely afraid. With lupus, this autoimmune disease that attacks the body. So if she gets even a cold, her immune system will see the cold as attacking the body. And so it goes out and attacks not only the cold, the viruses, but it also attacks her organs, such as her lungs, her heart. It attacks her joints. So it does real bad thing, and it doesn't know when to shut it off. So not only is it a bad aimer and focuser, what lupus does is just attacks everything. So if she were to get coronavirus, COVID-19, it would be pretty bad for her. So it's life and death.
Talking about that, how, the senior centers and different places, and we did an article in the magazine, as you know. So you've been helping me design the magazine for 20 years. It's been 20 years, you think? 18 years?
Yes, it's been almost 20 years. We've been together from the older magazines to the inception of Mount Pleasant Magazine. So I got to
tell us, or tell me for sure, how are you approaching this differently than you would a regular magazine?
Well, this magazine, I see it as being historical. I'm born and raised here in Mount Pleasant. I went through Hugo. I was a senior in high school when Hugo hit. So I know exactly the devastation and everything else. Actually, the house that I grew up in was flooded. We had 6 feet of water on the inside of our house because we're pretty close to the marshlands. And so I know the effect and the devastation that caused. And I remember not too long ago reading an old publication about Hurricane Hugo, and it brought back all these memories of, what I went through, what actually happened. And I'm thinking this edition of Mount Pleasant Magazine in 10, 15, 20 years or so, when someone who went through it look back at it, it'll stir up their memories as well. It'll be a nice keepsake historical magazine to keep around.
Yeah, it's fun to be part of this. So tell our listeners how you are positioning the content, and tell us what some of your favorite stories are in it.
Yeah, I've got all the stories are very interesting. They got to buy the numbers to let like a timestamp of what happened before, the numbers and everything, and the current numbers, which is pretty fascinating. A couple of the articles I like, we have an article in there called we're in this together, and it shows a thank you to a lot of the medical people. You got thank you to the nurses, of course, the doctors, the firemen, the policemen, the teachers. And one that I found real interesting was they gave a shout out to the hospital cleaners, people who clean out the hospitals, the workers who mop the floor, scrub down the equipment and everything. And I thought
I heard you talking about that one. That's kind of like unsung heroes, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's great to include them because a lot of people forget they're also putting their lives in danger just by being there, surrounded by all this germs and virus and everything.
Right.
Yes. So that one was great. Another article that I really like was an article done by the husband of a nurse. And it goes into great detail on, how caring these nurses are, how attached they really are. And during this crisis, one day you could see someone and they're doing great, and the next day they could be in a ventilator, and in a few hours they're no longer with us.
The interviews with the survivors, I found interesting. Did you as well?
Yes, the survivors one was real good. I like that you get to see an inside view of what they went through and how, the pain and the fevers and the hard breathing and everything that they went through. I thought that was real well.
I enjoyed the interviewing the town administrator, Eric DeMora. I thought Eric's story, to run a town like Mount Pleasant through this pandemic is quite interesting. Did you find that interesting?
Yeah, I did, and find out what goes on behind the scenes that we're not really privy to, but and how difficult it is to make some of these decisions. I thought it was very good.
I was fascinated that Mr. DeMora, actually they were talking about doing what they did in March in February. They were preparing in February for this. Isn't that amazing?
Yes, it is. Unbelievable. Something that no one's ever went through ever before, that's living at least. And to be able with modern technology to lock down a whole country, and then you had to lock down, for instance, they had to lock down the whole town and the whole, city and everything. It's pretty interesting what they did.
I agree with you. This is going to be a keepsake magazine, and people will treasure it and keep it around for decades and share it with their grandchildren and their children. Hey, Dana, I really appreciate everything that you've done for Mount Pleasant Magazine over the years. I appreciate you joining us on the podcast. I think that our listeners will like to hear from somebody that's been visually what they see in the magazine you help create. So I appreciate your time, Dana. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you for having me. You have a great day.
Hey, you as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for spending your time with the Voice of Mount Pleasant podcast by Mount Pleasant Magazine. Your community, your podcast. Listen to this and more local podcasts at mountpleasantpodcasts.com.